What is up, everybody? Jester here, and behind me is what I consider to be a very overpowered Purge base. It features 8 Sumerian Berserkers, all wearing Godbreaker armor, and Momentum, probably the best one-handed mace in the game, as their weapon. We have 7 Agility Archers, Dunemen of Dragoon. They all have Reach of the Red Mother, again, probably the best agility bow in the game, and they're all rocking redeemed Silent Legion gear. Heck, even our 4 Tar Dumpers have on epic gear and a Quake because we just had them laying around. But we didn't just pop into the server and poof, all of this was here for us. This took a very big effort to get everything put together, and we're going to be starting that effort today by getting ourselves powered up with weapons, getting our Thrall powered up with weapons, and getting into a much better gear set. We have got a lot of work to do today. Let's get into it. Before we can just run off and start getting into these much harder boss fights, my Thrall and I are going to need much better gear, and that's why we went ahead and unlocked the Exile Exotics. That gives us access to these perfected paddings. I'm going to use the heavy padding, and I'll explain why here in a little bit, but just know these need some resources. Hardened leathers in the Tanner's Bench, elephant hide you can find pretty easy in the savannah. Really not that difficult to get everything you need. And then from there, you just want to pick a set, and we're going to go with the Black Dragon set. Also note that since we're waiting to craft this type of gear and we've got the good armorer, we're going to get even more value out of doing these. So just craft you a couple of sets. We're going to be wearing these for a little bit. Our next stop is going to be over at the Tinkerer's Bench, and that's because we need to craft some things to really level up our gear. Even though this is not going to be gear we're in for very long, I still want to give us every advantage. And to do that, we're going to use this bulk plating. Now, you notice what it takes to make this. We're going to need 150 layered fur. So remember, I kept telling you guys to start stacking this stuff. We're going to make 10 of those. That's 5 pieces for me, 5 pieces for my Thrall. And then we're going to make a couple of master weapons fittings because we're about to stop by the blacksmith. Since I haven't really been to any dungeons to get good recipes for weapons or found any legendary crates at this point, I'm going to go with Star Metal weapons. For my Thrall, it's going to be a Star Metal mace, and for myself, it's going to be a Star Metal sword. Both of these have a health damage of 41. But remember, we've got the Bladesmith that gives us extra damage when we craft, so that brings it automatically up to 51. And then when we add the master weapon fitting, it's at 56. So 15 extra points between the Thrall and the little thing we got out of the Tinkerer's Bench. That's not going to be too bad. We're not going to have these weapons for very long. Hopefully we upgrade quickly, but this is as good as we can get for the moment. Now that my Snow Hunter and I have as good a gear as we can get, it's time to think about how do we sustain being away from the base for a long period of time. And since my Snow Hunter is at level 20, if they were under level 20, I'd want to be using steak to get their vitality leveled up. But since they are max level, we can use gruel. And the reason's really simple. Gruel, you get twice as much as you do with grilled steak, and the grilled steak spoils faster. So this is going to let us stay out as far as the heals go for our Thrall a lot longer. As far as we're concerned, we're going to be eating the exotic feast because it's got lots of things it does for us. First of all, it's going to give us plus 15% strength weapon damage bonus. We're also going to get a warming up effect if we happen to be in a cold area. We're going to get nutrition out of this. And the hidden benefit that I love about this is we get hydration. In my experience, it's up to like a third of your hydration bar you can get back from eating one of these. So even if you don't have a water skin or you've run out of water, you can use these for quite some time to stay out and keep collecting stuff. I also went ahead and got the Pure Aloe Extract. It's very expensive, but they're good heals, and I love them over wraps because wraps take longer in the middle of a fight, and you may not have that time, whereas a potion's a little bit quicker and you're back in. So that choice is kind of up to you guys, but now we're pretty much ready to head out. I've now reached back over to my Purge base, and we put this here for a very specific reason because we have extremely good access to the unnamed city. And before we get in there and get started on our run, I do want to point one quick thing out, and that is I'm running an encumbrance build, and this is kind of a modified version of what I've seen a few people do. I went with a few points in strength instead of agility because I like strength weapons and not agility weapons. The agility is really good, though, if you go to 15 because you actually can run a little bit quicker. So I understand why people would do that. But the encumbrance build revolves around you being an expertise level 20, which means that you can no longer be encumbered. Your only limitation in what you can carry is now 200 spots in your inventory. So it does limit us, however. It means that we're going to let Snow Hunter do most of the work, and we're basically going to play a support role when it comes to the fights. So just know you're not the main character in these fights. Let your Thrall do the work, and you'll be okay. Our first boss fight is going to be in this area of the unnamed city right about here. And this is going to be fighting the Brute because he can drop my personal weapon of choice. And that weapon is none other than the Predatory Blade. Now, this is a predatory weapon, which means light attacks hit as hard as a heavy attack, and heavy attacks do like 1 damage. So this is not going to be a good thrall weapon, but it's a good weapon for us. We don't want to use it just yet, because if it takes any damage, we won't be able to put the weapon kit on it, and that'll give it even more damage from 108. It's such a good weapon, and I love the fact that it doesn't take as much stamina to swing. Now notice we're also getting fragments of power, which we'll talk about in a minute. A little star metal, look at all the perfected paddings, and then also a weapon repair kit. It won't work on a legendary, but it'll work on our star metal stuff. So pretty good loot when it all comes down to it. And also, don't forget every time we kill one of these guys, go ahead and chop them up. We're getting demon blood, and there you saw we got a weathered skull. From there, we're going to exit and come right over into this general region, because we are going to go fight some dragons right down that way. We're going to start this fight up this way, but we will be making our way down to the spawning pools, because over here we have the baby dragons, and if you're in need of dragon bone or dragon horn, these guys aren't too difficult to get killed. Once dispatched, we just go ahead and chop them up as well, and again, dragon bone, dragon horn, exotic flesh, pretty good stuff. Down at the spawning pools, however, is the main event. Meet the Red Mother, one of the tougher fights in the Unnamed City. And when I say that, I mean it. This fight's hard, especially when you don't have the best of the best gear. And this particular boss will aggro on you when you're not even the one doing the damage. So just remember your role. If that happens to you, back away a little bit, let your thrall get back under control. Watch out for all the different movesets this thing has, and then come in and do damage when you have the chance. Once you defeat the Red Mother, she has the opportunity to drop one of the best agility bows in the game, if not the best, and that's going to be the Reach of the Red Mother. We're going to need 7 of these, so we're going to have to farm her a lot to get them. Also note she can drop a torch that lasts like 170 hours, so you get other good stuff out of her as well. The next available fight in our loop is going to be right here in this area of the Unnamed City, and it's going to be another dragon fight. There's 3 babies and a bigger dragon. I sometimes do this if I need the dragon horn or the dragon bone, but typically I skip this one. Whether you do or not, it's up to you. Next up, we're going to backtrack a little to the main drag, and we're going to hit the Citadel of the Triumvirate. And this one's not exactly a tough fight, but there are a couple of status effects that happen, including corruption and poison in here, that make this a little bit difficult. Again, the snake isn't super difficult. The problem comes in, you can see there that Snow Hunter has got 10 poison damage on her right now. So just be really, really careful. And again, don't forget that you need to chop up the snake, because it's giving you tons and tons of demon blood. And there is a little bit of loot here to be had if you want to pick that up. Also, don't forget to check back here for a fragment chest. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it isn't. It just kind of depends on the day, depends on the run, and it doesn't look like we get one this time, but sometimes there is one back here. From there, we're going to head up around the corner to the aviary, where we're going to take on this bat. But also just remember, this is a corrupted area, so get this done as quick as you can. Again, this isn't a particularly difficult fight. This guy basically has 2 attacks. He's got that attack, and then he gets stunned from it, and then he's got a bit of a wing attack. So just stay at him, and you'll get him in no time. With him being down, we'll collect the goodies, including another fragment of power, and I do want to mention to come back this way as well, and double check this, because there's oftentimes very good loot back here, including, as you see, some Black Lotus, so not bad stuff. Just down the hill from the aviary, we're going to come into this area, and this is probably the toughest fight when it comes to the Unnamed City. And it's not because the boss is very difficult, it's the ads. There is like 12 ads in here, and they're just very difficult to get around. Once you get too many of them aggroed, which they all aggro at once for the most part, you're going to hope that your thrall will take a lot of the damage. But you've got archers, and a lot of them just ignore your thrall completely and come after you. So if you can let your thrall get it under control, great. But I recommend doing small attacks and then bugging out and trying to take these guys down a little bit at a time. It makes it a touch easier. Also important to remember to let your thrall do her work. We can take out the remaining ads while she tanks the boss. And it's just a little bit easier to do this way. We will help her out here in a minute once we get rid of all of these guys. Now, much like a lot of the other bosses in the Unnamed City, these skeleton bosses don't really take knockback, so you kind of have to be careful and pick your spot. And here I'm going to get in and get about a 2 or 3 hit combo. If you time it just right, and get in right as he's finishing. You might be able to get your full 3, but mostly if you don't get too greedy and just go for your 3 spot, you're not going to run out of stamina, and this fight should be over pretty quick. With him down, it's also fair to note here that sometimes you don't get weapons. Sometimes you get things like these exquisite silk leggings, which are kind of cool for thrall stuff. Also note that you can come back over here and pick up a couple of chests that have miscellaneous loot in them. It's all just free stuff, including some gold that I like to call wealth. Our final fight in this loop is going to be at the slave pits, and this is basically just another one of those skeleton bosses. This time there's just less ads. With him down, we'll once again collect our loot, and then I do want to make sure you guys know that behind this little firelight here, there is another chest where you can come and pick up even more stuff. Just up the hill from where we had our last fight, you'll see we are back to where the brute spawns. So now we've got just a big circle that we can run. And as long as it's been 15 minutes since we killed the brute, he should be back up, and we can continue to do this until we run out of food or water or whatever it might be. But there is one more thing in the unnamed city that we have to mention. There is one other major area of interest that you're probably going to have to go to at least twice for the most part, and that's going to be the archives. Here you can see this is where the obelisk is at, and if you just follow straight down this way, we're going to get into a really cool little map room. Once you reach the end of the hallway, you're going to find this awesome little space known as the archive, and here we have the Library of Esoteric Knowledge. It takes 30 fragments of power to get all of the recipes unlocked, including the tablet of power, which when you craft one of those and consume it, you actually get a whole bunch more knowledge points. So eventually you won't ever have to respec any of that stuff. You'll have everything possible unlocked. Over here, we can come and speak with the archivist, and he has got a couple of things for us here as well. We can learn cartographer, which will give us the recipe for the map room. And for 5 additional fragments of power, you can buy memory of oils. This is going to be for different things on your weapons and tools, and we'll cover that again at a different time because I think these are kind of not very good. They really should be worked on. After stopping back at home and dropping off all the loot, we also wanted to upgrade our weapon and pick up some spicy food because we're going to be heading to a cold area to get to our very first dungeon where there is a very important armor recipe. At the very top of E10 and leading into E11 is the Bridge of the Betrayer, and that's going to lead you directly up to the Black Keep. This dungeon is an absolute maze, but luckily there's a ton of good loot in here, and you're going to pick up a lot of good stuff off of the enemy bodies as well, and they're not too difficult. But what you need to do is find the ancient key, and that will give you access to the final portion of this where we get to go fight the Kinscourge. Much like we did in the Unnamed City, we are playing that supporting role with these bosses. We're going to let our Snow Hunter tank the damage here, which she's really not getting hurt that bad. And we're going to come in when it's opportunistic for us to do so after we see all the different moves and stuff. Luckily, we really only have to do this dungeon once because we're just here for a recipe. It's not one that you need to repeat over and over again like the next one we're going to do in the next episode. With the boss defeated, we'll be looking for this tablet, which is going to give us the Silent Legion armor sets. And we're going to need the heavy set of that for our archers as well as ourselves going forward. But before we leave this dungeon, we have one more thing to look at. I do want to note too that there's other tablets that give you the same recipe. So if you miss it in the front, you can always find it here. But what we want to look at is these skeleton key chests, the legendary chest, because sometimes if you're really, really lucky, you might end up getting a weapon that you're really looking for, like this. This is the momentum. Now my thrall has the weapon I want to give them. I've got the weapon I want to give them. Now we just got to go get this Silent Legion armor for ourselves, and we're going to be ready to take on the world. For me, I'm going to go with 2 sets of the Redeemed Legion armor. This is the heavy armor, but as I said earlier, I'm an encumbrance build, so I don't care about weight, and my thrall doesn't care about weight, so why not try to get the highest armor value available to us, at least for now. This isn't going to be our end game gear, but it's going to be perfect for farming the stuff to make the end game gear. Just know you need perfected heavy paddings, star metal bars, black ice, and alchemy base to make these. But when you get it all said and done, especially with our armorer, I'm at 1700 armor now, and that's up from 1566. Plus, I've got a juiced up weapon, so does my thrall. We're in for some good times. Hopefully today's video is going to help some of you newer players kind of set some goals for yourself and be able to get into the position where you've got tons of fragments of power and you're getting your armor and stuff leveled up and getting better weapons. And I think it's just going to increase your enjoyment of the game. And if you're into that, like the video and subscribe, because in the next one, we're going to be taking a very comprehensive look at probably the toughest dungeon in the game, being Clayl's Stronghold. I'm going to show you all the bosses, all the loots, and the farming method for how we're going to get into our absolute end game gear and really stock up for our Purge base. Till next time, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.